Here's a question for you. What does a Nobel Prize look like? Any idea? What about a Fields Medal? A Pulitzer Prize? No? I've no idea either. But here's something you do know. The Oscar. You know what that is, 13.5 inches tall and weighing a robust 8.5 pounds. The most famous award in the world and probably the most famous statue in the world too.
And the Oscar goes to...
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 But behind the glitz and the glamour of the Hollywood backslapping awards night, there is a murky underworld of theft, intrigue and magic. We've got a hell of a show for you tonight. These are the crimes of Oscar. So let's start at the beginning. The very first Academy Awards were in May 1929. Douglas Fairbanks was the host and presented all the awards. The whole thing took 15 minutes. From that day on, Oscars were very desirable.
Buzz, look at you. This is the Oscars. It's supposed to be formal.
Well, that would explain all the penguins then. Got it.
In 1937, Alice Brady won the Best Supporting Actress for her role in the movie In Old Chicago. She was a big star in her day, one of only a handful of actors who successfully went from silent movies to talking. Anyway, on the night she couldn't make it, she'd broken her ankle. A man walked on stage and accepted the award. No one has ever seen that man or the award ever again. And so it began. Oscars were being nicked. You'd think no one could pull that particular stunt off again, but Hollywood loves a remake. In 1972, the Best Documentary Oscar was won by a movie called Marjoe. 2 awards were on the stage, one for each of the 2 directors. Only one director came up on stage. He made a speech and walked off with his Oscar. That unclaimed second Oscar? That was never seen again. Stolen. In 1940, Hattie McDaniel won the Best Supporting Actress Award for Gone with the Wind, the first ever award to a black performer. She gave her award to Howard University and it was stolen in 1970 and has never been found. Talking of Gone with the Wind, Michael Jackson bought the Gone with the Wind Best Picture Oscar at an auction from David O. Selznick for $1.5 million. That's the most anyone has ever paid for an individual Oscar. The reason it went for quite so much money is Michael Jackson ended up in a bidding war with Steven Spielberg. You see, since 1950, all Oscar winners are forced at gunpoint to sign a contract backstage at the ceremony. Basically, if you want to sell your Oscar, the Academy gets first refusal at a price of $1. If you try to sell an Oscar on the open market, the Academy will intervene. They'll sue, they'll take you to court, and they tend to win. The Academy's view is that you should only have an Oscar if you won it. That's the magic. It's nice here. I could stay all day. For Oscars prior to 1950, the Academy has a secret weapon: Steven Spielberg. Easily Hollywood's greatest living director, he was a governor of the Academy and he knows the value of an Oscar. Spielberg is a true believer in the magic. If an Oscar comes up on the open market, Steven Spielberg buys it and then he gives it to the Academy. He's done it 3 times already. He paid $180,000 for the Bette Davis 1935 Best Actress Oscar for Dangerous. He paid $578,000 for Bette Davis' 1938 Best Actress Oscar for Jezebel, and he paid $607,000 for Clark Gable's 1934 Best Actor Oscar for It Happened One Night. He gave all 3 Oscars back to the Academy.
I want to thank my mother.
I'd like to thank my mother.
Thank my mom.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
My mother. I love you.
I love you, Mom.
So I'd like to thank my mom.
Especially my mom. My mom.
My mom.
My mom.
Mom. My mother.
My mother. Mi madre.
And the moral of the story is, listen to your mother.
In 1944, Margaret O'Brien won the Outstanding Child Actress Oscar for Meet Me in St. Louis. 10 years later, in 1954, Margaret was 17 years old, living at home with her mum. The maid said, would it be okay to take the Oscar home to give it a good polish? They said, fine. The maid left with the Oscar and never came back. But in 1995, a good 40 years later, two collectors of memorabilia called Stephen Nyman and Mark Nash found her Oscar at a flea market. They bought it with $500 and gave it back to her. I call it the Oscar Boomerang. You see, it's a recurring theme. Around 3,000 Oscars have been awarded. About 80 Oscars have been stolen, but 67 of those stolen Oscars have been found and returned. There really is something quite magical about an Oscar. In 2002, Whoopi Goldberg sent her 1990 Best Supporting Actress Oscar for Ghost back to the Academy to be polished and replated. They sent it on to Chicago in a box. The box arrived, but it was empty. Her Oscar had been stolen. But then, miraculously, within a few months, it turned up in a trash can at California's Ontario airport. Not the best sequel, but true.
Black tie.
Gotcha.
Hey, will you get on with it? Will you two dummies hurry it up?
You know when you hear Oscar winners on the telly saying they ain't gonna let go of the statue? They mean it, and they say it for good reason. In 2018, Frances McDormand won the Best Actress Oscar for 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. She was at the governor's ball. A man called Terry Bryant snatched the Oscar off her table when her back was turned. Frances McDormand was distraught. She was in tears. The thief posted a video of himself holding her Oscar and was promptly arrested. Bryant said he had no intention to permanently deprive, and all charges were dropped. The Oscar was returned to Miss McDormand. One last crime. No, not that. One last crime. The name Oscar was coined by Margaret Herrick in 1934. She was the Academy's librarian. She said it reminded her of her Uncle Oscar. She didn't have an Uncle Oscar. It wasn't a joke. It was just pure marketing. She spent the rest of her life, though, regretting it. She thought the name damaged the dignity of the award and the prestige of the Academy. But to my mind, Margaret Herrick had done the Academy a great service. That name makes the award something special, something different. Margaret Herrick sprinkled it with a little movie magic. She made it popular. She made it human. Most importantly, she made it feel and sound attainable. You'd never believe you could win an Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Award of Merit. That's out of your league. But you and me, we could win an Oscar. We can see ourselves on the stage. We could make an acceptance speech. To my mind, the greatest crime in Oscar history is that Margaret Herrick, still to this day, hasn't been awarded a posthumous honorary Oscar. Let's right that wrong right here and right now. Ladies and gentlemen, for services to the Academy and the history of film, the honorary Oscar goes to Oscar's mum, Margaret Herrick. I look like Michael Jackson off the wall. Roadway put up an award of 25,000 grand. 25,000 grand is a lot of money.